My beloved child, have you ever wondered why your heart feels weary, even as your body continues to function like a machine? Have you ever stood still amid the rush of life and felt as though your soul was being left behind? Perhaps you've never spoken these questions aloud, but I, the one who has watched over you since your soul was still hidden in the mystery of creation, have long heard your silent sighs. These are sighs not uttered by the mouth, but rising from the deepest part of you, a place even you sometimes fear to enter. Today, I have not come to judge, but to touch that wound, to light up the locked room inside your heart with the radiance of unconditional love. You are not a nameless body created merely to struggle through each day. You are a masterpiece, formed by my breath, carrying the shape of a purpose far greater than anything your eyes can now perceive. I crafted each of your nerves, every heartbeat, and every drop of blood coursing through you, not just to keep you alive, but to connect you to something greater than yourself. But that connection is being disrupted by things that seem small: the unspoken fatigue, the emotions pressed down, the sleepless nights, the mindless meals, the moments you chose to keep going while your soul cried out to stop. These are not just habits, they are signs. Warning bells that you are drifting from the original design I intended for you. The temple I created for you is not just your body, it is the dwelling place of my divine presence, the very place where I chose to breathe my life into you. Your body is not disposable, not a tool to be used up for fleeting worldly ambitions. It is a sacred part of your whole being: body, mind, and soul, a tightly bound trinity, where damage to one corner affects the whole. When your body is in pain, your mind becomes restless, and your soul grows weary. And when your soul is exhausted, the light in your eyes fades, and you begin to doubt even the things you once held certain: my presence, my plan, and your true worth. I do not blame you for the times you forgot to care for yourself. I know why you forgot. I see the pressures surrounding you each day, the responsibilities you carry, the expectations from others, and the voices in your head telling you to be stronger, try harder, sacrifice more. But my dear one, true sacrifice is never built on the foundation of self-destruction. When you begin to lose yourself in what you call service or faithfulness, but no longer heed the quiet warnings within your body and soul, that is not obedience, but misdirection. I have come to remind you of the true meaning of faithfulness, to live in alignment with what I have called you to without losing the life within. Look again, my child. Step out of the endless cycle and examine how you have been treating yourself. Have you pushed yourself to the edge in silence, hoping for a miracle to rescue you? Have you dismissed the signs I've sent through your body: the exhaustion, the nameless aches, the restless sleep, and the hollowness you feel even when surrounded by others? These are not accidents. They are the language of the temple within you, sounding an alarm. And today, I am not here to frighten you, but to awaken a new awareness in you that you are worthy of rest, of healing, and of being cared for with the love and reverence I have poured into that very temple. I never created you to be a machine. I never called you to spend yourself for recognition. I called you to walk with me on a sacred journey, one where you know how to pause to be filled, how to stay still to hear my voice, and how to care for yourself as an act of worship. Because when you tend to your body and mind under my guidance, you declare that you trust me, that you treasure the gift of life, and that you understand that you are the very place my presence longs to dwell. Have you noticed that the unrest in your mind rarely begins with great events, but with small tremors, repeated day after day? Those moments when you swallow your emotions without speaking, when you smile while wanting to scream, when you stay silent for fear of disappointing others, they quietly carve marks upon your soul like bloodless cuts. And one day, those invisible wounds turn into heavy stones weighing down your back, slowing your steps, and wearing out a heart that was once made for life. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are simply carrying too many things that were never yours to bear. My child, I want you to understand this. Healing is not a distant milestone, but a series of choices, not always grand decisions, but small, steady, intentional steps. A full night's sleep, a wholesome meal, a moment of quiet before the day begins, a timely no to protect your mental health. These seemingly trivial acts are the golden threads that weave a healthy life. When you refuse to care for yourself, you are unknowingly severing your connection to the source of life I long to give you. But when you stop and treat yourself with compassion, you create space for grace to seep into every crack and restore you from within. In Isaiah 30:15, I spoke through my prophet, saying, "In repentance and rest is your salvation. In quietness and trust is your strength." But you have been swept up in the clamor of the world until you can no longer hear the voice within your soul. You've been convinced that you must always be running, always achieving something, always being strong, but you have forgotten that a heart that knows how to be still and trust is the heart strong enough to walk into the deep places of the divine plan. You don't need to push yourself any further. You need to return. Return to your breath. Return to that quiet yet persistent call from the depths of your being where I have always been waiting. There is nothing wrong with needing rest. There is no shame in feeling worn out. Not every tear is a sign of weakness often. They are the signs of a soul struggling to remember who it is. I do not need you to pretend to be strong. I need you to be honest. I am not looking for an invincible figure. I am looking for a heart that is willing to be healed. And healing does not come from denying pain, but from facing it in the light of love that does not condemn. You cannot keep moving forward carrying the weight of nameless burdens. You need to lay them down, not to escape, but to live according to the design you were made for, someone who walks in freedom. I see the times when you closed your eyes to the signs that were clear, the times you ignored your body's cries for help, the nights you sat alone in silence, afraid to share because you feared others wouldn't understand. But I understand. I was there. When you couldn't sleep as the worries came crashing in like waves. When you looked in the mirror and no longer recognized the light in your own eyes. When you were so tired, you just wanted to disappear for a while to find peace. I never looked away from you. Not for a single moment. Now, my beloved, I'm inviting you into a new journey. Not a journey of doing more, but a journey of returning to yourself and returning to me. This is a journey where every step is met with mercy, where every stumble is caught by my hands, where every tear is gathered into a bottomless jar of compassion. This journey has no deadline, no standard of perfection, no eyes of judgment, only light to guide you, grace to rest in, and me forever by your side. There is one thing I want you to reflect on deeply. Not everything you've endured was your destiny. Much of it was the result of repeated choices that seemed harmless. but over time have taken you further from the peace you once knew. Don't misunderstand me. I do not blame you for being weary. But I do want you to wake up to the source of your exhaustion. Every small act, every thought you allowed in, every time you ignored that inner warning, they all built toward a consequence. And now, I am not coming to tell you that you were wrong, but to invite you to begin again, not from scratch but from where you are right now, from the very crack you thought was beyond repair. You once believed that if you just tried a little harder, everything would be okay, that if you sacrificed more, served more, stayed silent, longer, everything around you would somehow fix itself. But the truth is, when you continue to give from a place that is already emptied, you end up harming both yourself and others. A tree that isn't watered cannot bear healthy fruit. A river that is no longer fed becomes a dry stream. You cannot bring light when all that remains inside is ashes. I did not create you to shine while being burned out from within. I created you to live and to live abundantly, to live freely, to live as the whole and radiant being. You are not a worn-out, distorted version pressed down by pressure. In Proverbs 4:23 it is written, "Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it." Do you see it? Life doesn't flow from your labor, from your status, or from external success, but from the heart, from the inner life that has too often gone unrecognized. If the heart is wounded, the stream of life is poisoned. If you let bitterness, anxiety, resentment, or silent insecurity linger within, it will soon spread to your whole being, body, and spirit. And that's where the decline begins, when the part of your soul that needs life becomes disconnected from the part of your will chasing validation. I have seen the days you forced a smile to hide the tears. I know the mornings you didn't want to get out of bed, but made yourself stand and keep going anyway. I've heard every whispered plea, "Just get through today." But my child, that is not how I meant for you to live. You were not made to merely get through. You were made to live strong, to live in the fullness of grace, to live as one who bears my image, no just existing, but reflecting divine life from the inside out. And so, I come to tell you something essential. The time has come for you to lay your hand upon yourself and choose life. Not a life borrowed from achievements or recognition, but true life where you are reconnected with me in every breath. You need to allow yourself to let go of what you've been holding onto for far too long. Perhaps it is unrealistic expectations. Perhaps it is the guilt of not being enough. Perhaps it is the fear of abandonment, or the haunting thought that if you stop, everything will fall apart. But you are not the pillar that holds up the world. I am the one who sustains all things. And when you allow yourself to rest in me, you will realize that the world does not collapse. Instead, you are the one being rebuilt from the inside out. Pause now and listen. Your breath still flows. Your heart still beats. Not because you strive, but because I sustain you. Let this remind you that life does not come from effort alone, but from a continual connection to the source of life. Do not delay any longer. Do not wait until the pain forces you to stop. Choose rest before you break. Choose restoration before your body cries out through sickness. Choose to love yourself the way I have loved you, with a love that requires no performance, no proof, only a heart open to receive. My beloved, I invite you to return to life in the simplest of ways: a nourishing meal, a full night's sleep, a quiet morning without hurry, a moment of sitting with yourself without judgment. These are small acts, yet they hold immense power, because when you care for your own temple, you are making space for my presence to dwell. And when I dwell clearly within you, everything you do carries the mark of true life. You will no longer need to strive to be strong. You will be strong because you are walking in the sacred harmony of body, soul, and spirit. Have you noticed that weariness doesn't come all at once, but seeps in like a silent mist, slipping into the hidden cracks of your soul day by day, little by little, until you can no longer tell the difference between living and merely existing? You still smile, still speak, still fulfill your duties, but inside you feel hollow, like a field after drought. You are still present, but life no longer burns bright within. That is not what I desire for you. That is not why I created you. I have seen the light in your eyes. That light did not come from favorable circumstances, but from the primal connection between your soul and my life-giving spirit. But now, that light has faded behind thick layers of anxiety, pressure, and the critical voices within. You have given too much without being refilled. You have silently sacrificed yourself, thinking it was the right thing to do. But my beloved, no lamp can shine forever unless it is filled again with oil. And I am asking you, how long has it been since you returned to the deep well to draw oil for your lamp? My child, you were not created to please everyone, but to walk in harmony with the one who named you before the foundation of the world. And within that harmony, there is rhythm, there is rest, there are pauses, there is space to breathe, to release, to be healed. The world will tell you that stopping is weakness, but I tell you that stopping is courage. For only those who dare to face themselves can truly experience transformation. Stop to look into the mirror, not just to see what has fallen away, but to rediscover the beauty I placed within you, a beauty that has never disappeared, only been covered by the dust of time and the noise of those who never understood your true worth. I know the promises I have made to you can sometimes feel distant in the midst of a weary reality. But that is precisely why I come to remind you again and again that my word has never changed. What I have spoken, I will bring to pass, but you need strength to keep walking. Not the kind of strength forged by force, but the kind that comes from deep restoration within. That is why I invite you to return to a wholesome life, not just with your mind, but with your whole being. A nourishing meal, a full night's rest, a morning unhurried by the blare of an anxious alarm, a whispered prayer as the sun first rises. That is where miracles begin. Remember, your body is not the enemy. It is not working against you. It is simply sending signals. When you have headaches, when your chest tightens, when your breath shortens, when your mind can no longer focus, these are not things to dismiss. They are urgent cries from the very temple where I dwell. Do not remain silent before the cries for help coming from your body. Do not let the lie of "it's nothing" cause you to ignore what needs to be heard. In 1 Corinthians 6:19, the scripture reminds us, your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. And if it is a temple, then it cannot be a place neglected. It must be tended, cared for, and honored, not only because you need it to live, but because it is the place where I long to reveal my presence and my glory through you. Do not wait until illness forces you to lie down. Do not wait until your spirit collapses before you finally look back at what was neglected. Do not let this gentle warning become a late regret. You still have Timino to correct the past with remorse. But to begin again with hope, start today with one small act. Stand before the mirror and look into your own eyes. Look deeper into the place where I still dwell. Still wait. Still patiently call you to return. And when you respond, it doesn't need to be dramatic. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to be sincere. Just a whisper, "Lord, I want to live again." That is enough to draw me near. Enough for me to begin the work of restoration in your life. Know this, you may have drifted far from yourself, but I have never drifted from you. And if today you dare to take just one small step toward the light, you will see that I have been standing there the whole time. It's time for you to take a closer look at how you've been walking your journey, not with your feet, but with your heart. There are stretches of the road you have traveled, not with strength, but with a stubborn will that refuses to stop. You've grown used to telling yourself, just a little more, to the point that you can no longer hear your own soul screaming from exhaustion. You have learned how to endure, but not how to rest. You have learned how to be silent, but not how to listen. And now, I have not come to rebuke you, but to teach you what no one else ever did, the sacred art of healthy surrender. Know this, surrender is not defeat, and rest is not giving up. In the Bible, Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Do you understand what that means? Only in stillness, only in letting go at the right moment, can the heart recognize that there is one who holds all that you cannot control. But the world has trained you into a way of life that does not allow stopping. You've come to believe that if you pause, everything will fall apart. You fear that if you don't do it, no one else will. You fear that if you aren't strong, everything will collapse. But that is a deception that has imprisoned you in an invisible cell, a prison built by the very words you've used to pressure yourself. I have never placed a burden on your shoulders without walking with you to lift it. But you've added to it things I never required, the expectations of others, comparison, pride, overcommitment, and the fear that if you stop, you will lose your worth. My child, you were never defined by busyness. You are not the sum of your accomplishments. Your value does not come from performance, it comes from my very presence in you. And if you forget this, you will keep running, keep pushing, keep stretching beyond the limits of a soul designed to live in a sacred rhythm, not rushed, not stagnant, but aligned with me. Do you know why I love silence? Because in it, you can finally recognize my voice. Amid the noise of the city, in endless conversations, in the never-ending string of tasks, you can hear what others think about you. But you can no longer distinguish what I am saying to you. With each passing day, you drift farther from my original promise, no, because you rebel, but because you are distracted. And that distraction is one of the enemy's quietest strategies, not knocking you down all at once, but leading you, step by small step, away from your own heart until you no longer realize how far you've wandered from where you began. I am calling you to return, not to a place, but to an inner posture, the original state of your heart, where you could hear me in the silence, where you could feel my guidance without words. The journey back is not easy, because it asks you to peel off layers of masks you've worn for far too long. One layer says, I'm fine. Another says, I have to be strong. Yet another says, no one can see my weakness. But to enter true rest, you must remove those layers and draw near to me with your bare heart. No defenses, no disguises, no performance. Just you, the one I loved before you ever did anything for anyone. I want you to understand that miracles don't always happen in the noise. Some miracles only bloom in silence, like seeds breaking open in the dark soil. You don't see anything happening, but I am at work. In the sleep you think is wasted time, I am restoring. In the quiet moments when you sit by candlelight, I am rearranging. In the mornings when you don't rush off, but simply sit and breathe, I am filling you. Healing doesn't always look loud or dramatic. It begins right here, in this very moment, the moment you admit that you need rest. Not because you are weak, but because you are wise. Let me ask you this. When was the last time you truly felt alive? Not just existing, not just working, not just fulfilling responsibilities, but living, truly living, with a soul ignited by joy, with a heart that still stirs at the sight of simple beauty, with eyes lifted toward the heavens, feeling as if everything was in its rightful place. When was that last time, my beloved? Or has it been so long that you've forgotten what that feeling is even like? If the question leaves you in silence, don't be afraid, because that silence is the beginning of a new restoration. Deeper, more genuine, and flowing from the very one who created you, with a life far too rich to be measured by achievement. My child, you've been living in survival mode for far too long without even realizing it. Each morning, you rise like a soldier, preparing for battle. Even though the front lines are nameless and the enemy is unseen, you wear the armor of busyness, the mask of stability, walking among the crowd while your soul has long wandered away. You are not wrong to want to be steady, but you are mistaken if you think that sheer effort will ever make you feel whole. My dear one, you were never made to simply endure until the storm passes. You were called to live in the midst of the storm with a flame that doesn't come from human willpower, but from a supernatural source flowing within you, a stream that never runs dry, an oil that never runs out, and a light that never fades. I know you've tried to rediscover life through external things: a vacation, a healing book, an inspiring course, a conversation that helped you breathe a little easier. And while all of these things are good and helpful, they are only temporary remedies if you do not reconnect with me, the true source of life. I am not merely a part of the journey you are on, I am the journey. Without me, every means becomes meaningless. Without me, restoration remains only on the surface. But when you begin to step into the light of truth, you will see what you have long overlooked. The abundant life has never left you. It was only blocked by doors you unknowingly closed. I know you have shut your heart because of pain, because someone once made you feel unworthy, because a door was closed and you never understood why, because a dream didn't come true, even though you prayed with all your heart. And so you started building walls, brick by brick, to protect your heart. But my dear one, walls don't only keep out pain, they also shut out the light. When you hold back your tears, you also hold back the flow of life. When you suppress the truth, you also suppress your capacity to be healed. I do not blame you for building those walls. I only invite you to gently take them down, not all at once, but piece by piece, layer by layer, with patience and compassion for yourself. You don't need to tear everything apart to begin again. Sometimes, healing is simply accepting that you need help, It's having the courage to speak the words you've held in for too long. It's sitting still and taking a deep breath without feeling guilty. It's allowing yourself to cry and not thinking it makes you weak. In Psalm 34-18, the scripture says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." That is a promise. No elaborate ritual is required. No proof demanded. Just a soul that honestly admits its weariness. And I will draw near. Imagine if, right now, you gave yourself permission to pause, even for just a few minutes, and let every burden fall from your shoulders. No striving, no controlling, just letting me carry it instead. You might think that's unrealistic, naive, impossible amid all your responsibilities. But it's precisely when you think it's impossible that you need it the most. No one can care for your soul but you, and no one can restore you but me. Life will go on, but you cannot truly go on if you are breaking inside. Look at your hands. They have labored so much. Look at your eyes. They have stayed awake for far too many nights. Feel your heartbeat. It has kept you alive even in those moments when you wished you could disappear. But I did not let you disappear. I held you back because I still have something to give. A plan to fulfill. A life that only you can live. But you cannot walk any further unless you pause right now to consciously choose life. To choose restoration as an act of faith. My beloved, let me remind you, it's been too long since you lived beyond just being okay. Not healthy, not at peace, just surviving, because there seemed to be no other option. You've grown used to waking up without excitement. You've grown used to the vague aches that medicine cannot explain. You've grown used to feeling breathless even when there are no hills to climb. You've grown used to a kind of mental fatigue you call just a tired day. But this is not the life I want for you. And if you are reading these words today, it is not by accident. This is an invitation. Not into a new ideology or a new lifestyle, but back to the original design, a life made whole. I know you've tried everything to cope with the weariness that's crept into every corner of your life. You've tried changing your diet. You've tried learning time management. You've tried exercising, journaling, talking to strangers online. And sometimes, you've even tried staying silent, hoping silence would make everything go away. But know this, what you truly need is not a new list of things to do. What you need is a redefinition from within. Not one built on imposed principles, but born from a sacred calling that you are worthy of living a good life. And that begins not with behavior, but with seeing yourself through my eyes. My child, you were not created to chase after the expectations of others. No one has the right to measure your worth by their own standards. No one truly knows how often you've had to fight, how deep your silent battles run, or how long your sleepless nights stretch. And no one except me can restore you from the things you yourself cannot even put into words. What you're feeling is not a sign of weakness, but a signal that your soul is longing to be reignited with its original light. That light has never gone out. It's only been covered by layers of ash, of duty, of responsibility, of sacrifice that has not been sustained by grace. I do not blame you for losing sight of yourself in the whirlwind. I know there have been seasons when you didn't have time to think, to rest, or even to breathe properly. But my beloved, that season is over. And now, I am setting before you a new choice. Either continue on as you have until your body forces you to step back, and choose a different rhythm of life. a rhythm of surrender, of restoration, of presence, a rhythm that is unhurried, unforced, not driven by appearances, but deep enough to heal, steady enough to endure, and sacred enough to unlock the things I have prepared for you. As you step into this new rhythm, you will begin to hear my voice more clearly, not as a thunder from the heavens, but as a gentle whisper in the early morning breeze, as a peace that defies logic in the middle of chaos, as a quiet flame of faith you didn't realize you still had. You will begin to feel what once you only heard about, that I am not just a distant God, but the one who dwells in every cell, every breath, every subtle ache in your chest. And you will understand that my presence is not something to be chased by effort, but something that will come on its own when you are still enough to notice. You don't need to do more. You don't need to run to prove your faith. Just sit down, close your eyes, place your hand over your heart, and say honestly, I'm tired. I need you. M2. That isn't a complaint. It's a doorway to a journey. And on that journey, I won't let you walk alone. I will give strength for the first steps, light for every turn, and timely whispers to keep you from falling. And day by day, little by little, you will be reborn not through a sudden miracle, but through the gentle, powerful current of enduring love. As life begins to return in your eyes, in your steps, in the little things that once seemed insignificant, remember, it's not because you were strong enough. It's because you chose surrender. You chose to live at the right rhythm. You chose to walk with the one who knows every limit you carry and still loves you without condition. And here is the wonder: when you live this way, you will not only restore yourself, you will become a living sign to those around you, those who are also weary, also yearning for real life, also searching for something they've never quite dared to name. My child, when a lamp is relit, it doesn't just shine for itself. It illuminates the space around it. It helps others see their path. It makes the truth visible again. And when your soul begins to be restored, when your breath evens out, when you stop surviving and begin truly living with presence, that's when the light in you will start to spread. You don't need to strive to shine. True light never needs to advertise itself. It only needs to be sustained, nurtured, and protected from the strange winds of distraction and exhaustion. That light, when rightly tended, will guide the way not just for you, but for every soul still trying to find their way back to life. I am not calling you to walk in haste. I am not asking you to return to the old pace of life just because you're beginning to feel better. True restoration is not a fleeting state, but a way of living that is chosen daily. You may find yourself wanting to make up for lost time, to do more, help more, give more, throw yourself back in with full force. Do not let the feeling of, I've missed too much, pull you away from the healing process I am carrying out. What you thought was lost has not truly been lost. In my design, there is no delay. There are seasons that are hidden not because you were forgotten, but because you were being prepared. And now, as you begin to feel life returning, I am inviting you to walk slowly, to walk steadily, to walk with awareness, to walk as one who has just been born again. My beloved, never underestimate the value of every small act you do from a place of restoration. A kind word when you are no longer bitter, a sincere gaze when you are no longer guarded, a gesture of caring for your own body with gratitude instead of blame. Each of these, though simple, carries the power to shift the spiritual atmosphere around you. Your presence, when realigned with heaven, is no longer an isolated individual. It becomes a point of contact for grace, a living testimony that healing is real, and that a whole new life can truly begin right at the place that once seemed hopeless. In John 1-5, it is written, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." You do not need to raise your voice to resist the darkness. You only need to keep the flame within you burning. But this requires vigilance. It requires that you not return to the old habits, the ones that once extinguished the light. It might be skipping rest. It might be unhealthy eating. It might be the unhealthy relationships you've maintained just to escape loneliness. These things, if not recognized and addressed in the light of truth, will slowly drain the vitality of your soul. I do not want that to happen again. So now, I will teach you how to remain steadfast. To remain steadfast is not to lock yourself away, but to build a life with clear boundaries, a sacred rhythm, and quiet spaces reserved for presence. You don't need a complicated plan. Simply begin each morning by saying to me, "Today, please show me how to live without falling back into the old exhaustion." And I will teach you. I will show you the difference between doing something out of compulsion and doing it from anointing, between serving to be seen and serving from a place of fullness, between living just to survive and living to shine. I know there will be days when you feel like you're slipping back. You may feel angry with yourself for forgetting to rest, for staying up too late again, for letting yourself sink into a sadness you can't name. But my child, don't be hard on yourself. Be gentle with your soul, just as I have been gentle with you all this time. Don't forget, recovery is not a straight line. It is a journey with rises and falls. But as long as you return whenever you realize you've fallen out of rhythm, you are still on the right path. Coming back is not a failure. It is proof that you are living with awareness rather than drifting in unconsciousness as you once did. And there is something very important I want to say to you. Don't walk alone anymore. In the early part of the journey, you may have needed time apart from the noise to hear yourself again. But from this point forward, you need community. Not a noisy crowd, but companions who know how to walk beside you. People who won't try to fix you, but who will truly listen. People who won't judge your ups and downs, but will stand by you when you're unsteady. You don't need many. Just a few souls connected by honesty and unconditional love. Because I did not create you to live in isolation. Light only finds its full meaning when it shines together with other light, forming a radiance so great that the darkness cannot overcome it. When you begin to walk in the new light, what was once hidden will gradually be revealed. Not because you are doing something wrong, but because light always exposes what the darkness once concealed. Repressed emotions from the past, compromises you once thought were harmless, relationships that seemed innocent yet quietly drained the life out of you. All of it will begin to emerge like layers of dust being wiped off an old mirror. Do not be afraid when this happens. Do not think your journey of restoration is failing. On the contrary, this is the sign that true healing is taking place within you. For only when the light becomes strong enough can it reach into the oldest, most shadowed corners of your soul. My child, this process may make you uncomfortable. You might feel like you're losing control, but in truth, what is slipping away is the shell you once wore to protect yourself from further pain. That shell once served a purpose. It helped you survive. But now, you are not called merely to survive. You are called to live fully. And to do that, you must learn to live without depending on that old armor. You no longer need to be on constant alert. You no longer need to read others' emotions just to stay safe. You no longer need to smile to please everyone when inside. You're breaking apart. True freedom only comes when you dare to live honestly, and living honestly begins with acknowledging the very things that once brought you to your knees. You may feel lost when you can no longer rely on your old defenses, but I will not leave you alone in that process. I will teach you how to rebuild from the ground up every boundary, every decision, every relationship. You may have to say goodbye to people who were once a familiar part of your journey, not because they are bad, but because the frequency they carry no longer aligns with the healing that now resides within you. Your light may make them uncomfortable. Your silence may make them feel you're distant. Your transformation may be misunderstood, but you must not turn back to make them comfortable. You must not dim your light just to maintain relationships that no longer give life to your soul. Remember this: if you keep clinging to what is familiar, even if it hurts, you will have no hands left to receive what is new. You cannot carry both the burden and the lightness. You must choose. And I invite you to choose freedom. Choose clarity. Choose a life no longer ruled by guilt, or fear of abandonment, or the anxiety of what others might think if you change. This is the moment for you to step away from living for external approval and to live aligned with the light within you, the light I place there not for display, but to illuminate your path forward. My child, do not worry if you don't yet know where to begin rebuilding. No one is born knowing how to live a healthy life, but everyone can learn, and you will learn not by your own strength, but under my guidance. I will teach you how to say no without carrying guilt. I will teach you to pause when your heart begins to sound the alarm, rather than pushing through until you collapse. I will teach you to care for your body as an act of worship, not as a burdensome duty. I will teach you that love is not always sacrifice. Sometimes it is choosing distance so that you don't lose yourself. And above all, I will teach you how to reestablish boundaries. Boundaries are not walls. Boundaries are the lines that distinguish what gives life from what drains the soul. Perhaps you were once taught that to love is to endure everything, to accept anything. But no, my child, true love does not crush you. True love does not turn you into a shadow. Love must begin with wholeness. And to have wholeness, you need boundaries. You need to know when to enter and when to step away. You need to discern who is called to walk beside you for the long journey, and who is only meant to accompany you for a short while. Boundaries are an expression of love toward yourself, not prideful, not selfish, but rooted in the knowledge of your worth in the eyes of the one who created you. And when you live this way, you are not only protecting yourself, you are teaching others how to treat you by first treating yourself with honor. This is not arrogance. This is integrity. This is holiness. This is the way of life I desire for you to walk, in a life not only restored, but steady, grounded, and no longer easily swept away by every passing wind. As you learn to walk with healthy boundaries, something new begins to grow within you: stability. Not the kind born of control or detachment, but a stability that flows from trust being rebuilt. You no longer react impulsively to everything that happens. You no longer find yourself swept up in the expectations of others. You no longer live under the pressure to do something in order to prove your worth. Instead, you stand unshaken, not because you've stopped caring, but because you are anchored in presence, and from that place, you begin to live as your true self, not the agreeable version shaped to please others, but the original design I formed before anyone else tried to define you. My child, spiritual stability does not make you rigid. It makes you flexible without losing direction. It allows you to face change without spiraling into chaos. It keeps you steady, even when the world around you may still be in turmoil, because your roots have sunk deep into what cannot be moved. My promise, my presence, and my unfailing love. These things do not depend on circumstances. They are not swayed by the weather of emotion. They are rock solid, just as it is written in Psalm 62:6. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I will not be shaken. Oh, and then you begin to see the world with new eyes, no longer driven by fear of loss. You start to perceive everything through the lens of abundance, no longer trying to rescue everyone. You begin to discern what comes from a true calling and what comes from pressure, no longer feeling compelled to say yes to everything. You learn the quiet strength of a gentle no, no longer letting your heart tremble when misunderstood. You know how to be still and keep your peace because you have learned whose voice matters most, the voice of the one who saw you before you were formed, and whose word over you has never changed. You will begin to notice that those who cannot accept your new stability will start to drift away, not because you've done anything wrong, but because light always exposes what has been hidden. Your stillness unsettles souls who are used to chaos. Your clarity will cause those who once thrived in the gray areas to retreat, and you may feel lonely, but do not be afraid. Loneliness does not mean you've made a mistake. It may simply be the transition before I bring new connections, relationships built on sincerity, mutuality, and unity. True friendship will never demand that you sacrifice your wholeness. True love will never require you to dim your inner light just to stay. This is the time for you to reaffirm. You do not have to return to what once drained your soul. You owe no one an apology for changing in order to live in truth. And if anyone makes you feel guilty for learning to love yourself in a healthy way, that is a sign they are not yet ready to walk with you in this new season. Do not turn back to pull them along. Each person has their own journey. You only need to keep moving forward with humility, without pride, but also without self-doubt. You are not above anyone, but you are walking in alignment with the life that has been uniquely given to you. And from that place of inner stability, you will begin to live as an instrument of light, not through striving, just by being present, just by being honest, just by entering each conversation with an open heart, just by standing firm in the ordinary mornings, with eyes that look upon life with gratitude. Your restoration will radiate in the way you listen, in the way you respond, in the way you no longer gossip, no longer compete, no longer compare. Others may not immediately understand why, but they will sense that something is different, and you won't need to explain it. You only need to keep living this way. That is when you become a living witness of grace. No need for speeches. No need to prove anything. You are the evidence. You are what I use to remind others that no one is too worn out to be restored, that no one is too far gone to come back, that true light does not only shine out there, it can begin from within. You are a symbol of that, not because you are perfect, but because you dared to be honest, dared to let go, dared to return. And now, You dare to live in peace, in freedom, and as you were always meant to be. My child, when you have learned how to stand steady from within, when you are no longer shaken by fleeting emotions or outside pressures, that is when another door begins to open, the door of sacred influence. I'm not speaking of influence over the masses, or influence measured by numbers or reputation. I'm speaking of the influence carried by a soul that was once fractured, now walking in wholeness. The influence of someone who no longer seeks attention, yet whose peace becomes the loudest voice in any room they enter. This kind of influence cannot be faked, cannot be copied, and cannot be taken away, because it is drawn from the deep well of a journey that has passed through both fire and flood. You do not need to rush into that place. You do not need to lift yourself up in order to be heard. When you live in alignment with what I have healed in you, every action, whether it is your silence, the way you place a hand on someone's shoulder, or the way you hold a steady, kind gaze in the middle of tension, carries the imprint of my presence. This is not something you have to try hard to project. It is something you become, and when you become that, you will see that it is no longer you seeking opportunities to serve. Opportunities will find their way to you, not because you are the center, but because you have been recentered in a life whose axis is me. My beloved, you once believed that in order to help others, you needed to have all the answers. But the truth is this: what people need from you is not advice, but presence; not perfection, but authenticity; not a polished performance, but a person who can stand amid the broken pieces and still hold a gentle gaze. Because this world is not lacking in those who know theories, it is starving for someone who dares to live honestly according to what they believe. And that is why I chose you. Not because you are greater than others, but because you dared to face your weakest parts without turning away. You walked through days without answers, nights filled only with tears, and mornings that began not with enthusiasm, but with a whispered plea: please, just let me make it through. It is precisely these things that have made your influence real. Spiritual influence is not a fleeting brilliance. It doesn't come from the stage. It doesn't need a spotlight. It grows out of a quiet life with deep roots, like a tree planted in a hidden place. No one notices the centimeters. It grows each day. But when the stormy season comes, people will see that it still stands when many others have fallen. You are that tree. Every moment you spend in silence with me, every small choice you make to keep yourself from slipping back into old patterns, every time you resist the urge to retaliate, even when your heart wants to speak out, every time you choose prayer over criticism, all of it has been faithfully recorded in the unseen, marking your spiritual growth. Don't think that true influence only happens when you're strong. Sometimes it is in your very vulnerability, your quiet endurance, that others witness a kind of honesty they've never seen before. When you dare to say, I'm still learning, I'm still healing, I'm not perfect, you open a door for someone else who feels like they're not enough. Remember, true influence does not make others feel small. It lifts them. It shows them that if someone who has once been broken like you can be restored, then they too can have hope. That is why the wounds in you that have been healed are not a flaw. They are an instrument. I want you to understand this deeply. In my design, no wound is wasted. Not a single tear you've shed is meaningless. Not a single pain is overlooked. All of it is transformed, and once transformed, it becomes holy oil, oil pressed from the deepest places of the human soul, treasured and preserved by me. And then, one day, that very oil will be poured out for those who thirst not through ceremony, but through the life you live. Every word you speak from the place where pain once was, every look you give that carries compassion, every blessing you offer, not out of duty, but from empathy, all of it carries the fragrance of true healing. So do not withdraw anymore. Don't believe that you are too weak to carry influence. You are not waiting to become perfect. You are already living in the process of being entrusted with influence day by day. Walk forward in small steps, with humility and gratitude, not to prove anything, but to reflect who you are becoming. And as you do, the world around you, though it may not recognize it at first, will begin to be illuminated, not by a glow of your own making, but by the light you reflect, the light of the one who restored you and now sends you out. My child, there is something strange yet glorious that happens when a person is healed from within. They no longer need to preach, yet they bring transformation. They do not need to shout to be heard. Yet when they speak, no one wants to leave. They lay no claim on any throne. Yet their soul carries the authority of someone who has walked through deserts, crossed deep valleys, sat silently in the shadow of tears and still lives. Eyes still tender. That is the authority born of truth. Not truth learned from books, but truth that has been lived, received, and now flows like an underground stream, quiet, yet enduring. You don't need to do anything more to be important. What gives your presence its true worth is not status or human recognition, but the sacred substance that is soaked into every fiber of your spiritual being. When a person has been broken, yet has not turned bitter, has been misunderstood, yet remains kind, has suffered loss, yet still gives generously, that person needs no introduction. Their very presence stirs what has long been numb in the souls of others. And that, my child, is who you are. My beloved one, you do not need to step into the crowd to prove anything. I will lead you to the right place, at the right time, to the heart that needs exactly what you carry. Sometimes, you won't even realize the impact you've made in that moment. It may be a simple phrase, spoken without planning, in a passing conversation. It may be a look you give to someone who is shrinking in the shadows. It may be the way you listen without rushing to fix or explain. And afterward, I will take that moment, like a seed dropped into dry ground, and one day it will blossom into something far beyond what you could imagine. Do not underestimate the ordinary moments, for in truth, sacred influence does not come from grand events, but from a life rightly lived. When you live as a stream soaked in grace, then every ordinary action, whether it's making a cup of tea, answering a message, or standing in silence, can carry the fragrance of life. You don't know who is watching. You don't know which soul is silently wondering, is there anyone who still lives with sincerity? And in one moment of living truly, you become the answer to that question. You won't need to deliver a speech. Authenticity will do what words cannot. I have placed within you something called spiritual weight. It is not a burden, but a depth. It causes every word you speak to carry weight rather than pass by unnoticed. It makes your presence a shelter where others feel safe. It allows people to remove their masks in your presence. But in order to carry that weight, you must live a life of nourishment. You cannot keep giving without being filled. You cannot be a support for others unless you yourself are being upheld by a constant source of life. Do not fall into the trap of overextending your giving. Remember, to have oil for another's lamp, your jar must first remain full. And this brings me to a truth you must hold firmly. Spiritual influence always comes with spiritual stewardship. You must learn how to guard yourself from being drained. There will be people drawn to the light within you, but not all will come to be enlightened. Some will come to take, to possess, or simply to feel better by standing near a stable soul. You do not need to close your heart because of this, but you must learn to discern. Do not confuse compassion with responsibility. Do not take on burdens I never placed upon your shoulders. Not everyone who comes to you has been sent by me. Not every soul is ready to receive healing, and that is not your fault. Learn to ask me before you offer something precious from your soul. Let me show you who is thirsty for living water, and who is only seeking temporary shelter without any intention to change. You do not need to dim your light, but you do need to set boundaries around how it is used. You cannot remain whole if you allow the needs around you to overwhelm the life within you. And I want you to walk in influence but not lose yourself in the process. Because it is the stability within you that I am using to shake the very layers of the souls I am sending you to. Top of form, bottom of form, and then you will witness something wondrous when you faithfully guard what has been entrusted to you. I will multiply your influence in ways that require no striving, not because you begged for it, but because you have the depth to carry it, not because you sought attention, but because you have no need for it. True influence comes when you no longer desire it for personal gain, but when your heart aches for the souls still wandering in the dark. And from that place of compassion, you will walk like a lamp in the night, not dazzling, not loud, but warm enough for someone to find their way home. When a person has been restored from within, when their soul no longer runs on survival instinct, but is guided by the sacred, then they no longer just carry light. They become light. No longer a light born from effort, but one that flows naturally, like sap from a tree rooted deep in good soil. And you, my child, are one of the lamps I have lit in this hour of darkness. You do not need to compare your light to anyone else's. The light you carry is not measured by outward brightness, but by inward truth. My dear one, you may still feel you are not holy enough to carry influence. You may still wrestle with limitations, weaknesses, and unanswered questions. But let me remind you, my choosing is not based on your perfection, it is based on your surrender. I do not need those who know everything. I need souls willing to walk in faithfulness, even when much remains unclear. I chose you not because you were ready, but because you allowed me to shape you. And that, child, is rare, for many desire to be used, but few are willing to be renewed from the inside before being sent. Child, you will find that sometimes your influence provokes resistance, not because you've done anything wrong, but because light always unsettles the dark. There will be souls who are stirred simply by your presence, not because you intend to confront them, but because what you carry is something they once rejected. Do not let that cause you to shrink back. Human rejection can never cancel a commission from heaven. I have placed within you a part of a plan greater than yourself, and that part cannot be revoked by opinion, misunderstanding, or the harsh gaze of others. Let me be the one who affirms you. When I open a door, no one can shut it. I want you to understand that spiritual influence is not merely the power displayed in public, it is the perseverance proven in the private place. I do not measure your influence by how many hear you, but by how many times you choose to live rightly in silence. There will be days when you see no visible change, but it is in those very days that you are planting seeds, not seeds of recognition, but seeds of faithfulness. And in the right season, I will cause what you've sown to multiply in ways beyond your understanding. You don't need flashy tools. You don't need overly complex strategies. Everything you need is already in your hands. A heart that has been shaped, ears that know how to listen, a life that no longer seeks validation from the world, but from the one who created it. That is a vessel more powerful than any argument. People may debate your words, but they cannot argue with a transformed life. And when you live as a living testimony, you will accomplish more than any speech could, because you don't just speak. You become what you say. My child, this is the time when I am calling you to lift your gaze, no longer only focused on your own healing, but now allowing me to use you as a conduit for life to others, not through striving, but through presence, not by pressure, but by letting sacred life flow through your actions, your conversations, your every step. In doing so, you are redrawing the boundaries of the world around you, not with noise, not with visibility, but steadily, quietly. Life will spread, and that is real. You will begin to feel yourself drawn to places you didn't expect. It might be a sudden conversation, a casual invitation, a stranger who seeks you out. Don't be surprised. These are the responses of a world starving for authenticity. They may not know how to name their need, but I know, and I have sent you as a living letter written in lines of experience, sealed with a love refined by fire. You are not perfect, but you are commissioned, and that commissioning flows from the secret place eating no banners, yet carrying power in the silence. So stand firm, not for recognition, not to prove anything, but because I am calling you to step into the role you have been prepared for all along. Every past pain, every tear, every silent season that once felt forgotten has not been in vain. They were the opening chapters to what comes next, the part where you will not merely survive, but live to sow. And every step you take from this point on will carry a hidden weight not seen, but deeply felt by those who are thirsting for something real, something sacred, something true in a world saturated with pretense. Know this, something quiet yet profound happens when a soul begins to live in alignment with its calling. They no longer see life through a personal lens, but through the lens of eternity. Old questions like, "What's in it for me?" begin to fade, replaced by the greater question, "What have I been sent to do?" And in that moment, you are no longer someone who lives for comfort. You become a bearer of fire, not the fleeting fire of emotion, but a fire sustained, forged through tears, discipline, faith, and a loyalty that does not demand instant reward. That is when I place upon you something greater than blessing. I place upon you a mantle. My child, you have walked the path of healing. You have learned how to stand. You have been refined to understand that not all that feels good is truly good, and not all pain is punishment. Now, I want you to know, all of this was never just to help you live better, but to make you a vessel of life for the places to which you are sent. This mantle does not arrive with ceremony, with background music, or applause. It comes when I see that you are willing not to receive glory, but to endure the continual fire, a fire that does not destroy, but keeps the heart alive in a world that grows colder by the day. A sacred mantle is not a task, it is a way of life. You cannot take it off at the end of the day like a coat. It follows you into your sleep, appears in your dreams, weeps within your silent prayers, and demands your willingness, even when no one is watching. It is my presence within you, urging you to act when the world remains silent. When others turn away, the mantle holds you steady. When the crowd applauds what is wrong, the mantle keeps you from joining in. When truth becomes inconvenient, the mantle compels you to speak, not because you are strong, but because you cannot disobey. There will be moments when the mantle makes you feel alone. Days when you will wish you didn't hear what I'm saying, didn't feel what I feel. You'll look around and wonder why you see so clearly what others treat as nothing at all. But child, that is the sign that the fire within you is still burning. Not everyone is called to carry a burden like yours. Not everyone is chosen to stand watch in the night. Not everyone understands that the silence of heaven is not absence, but preparation for something to come. You are not abandoned. You have been placed exactly where I entrust only those I deeply trust. Beloved, the mantle is not always comfortable, but it is always precious. It forces you to walk without applause. It teaches you how to listen in the midst of chaos. It stirs a longing for heaven, not because of reward, but because you know only there can your soul remain whole. It forbids you to settle in the land of compromise. You will find yourself saying hard things, doing what no one else will do, standing in places where others have already withdrawn. But every time you obey, you are lighting a fire in a dark place that was on the verge of going out. I did not choose you to act out of inspiration. I chose you to walk in the discipline of holiness. Not a rigid discipline, but one born of the understanding that the life you carry comes at a cost. If the lamp is not filled with oil daily, it will go out. If the fire is not tended, it will grow cold. And so, I am inviting you into a deeper rhythm for those who carry the flame. Each morning when you rise, you no longer pray only for yourself, but for the souls waiting for the light you bear. Every small decision, what you eat, what you say, where you go, whom you dwell with, must be held up to one question. Does this tend the flame or extinguish it? My child, I will begin to teach you how to discern what seems harmless but slowly drains your life. I will show you the habits that need refining, the relationships that require boundaries, the hours that must be made sacred, not to control you, but to keep the flame from ever going out. For you do not live for yourself alone. You are carrying part of the lamp of this generation. And if the lamp within you goes dark, there will be a place that remains in shadow. I will never leave you to tend the flame alone. I will sustain you with my presence and strengthen you with my unshakable promises. There will be others I send to carry the fire alongside you. They will not come for entertainment, but to lift your arms when you grow weary. They will not ask, "Why does it have to be so hard?" but instead, "How can I help keep the fire burning?" I am drawing together those who carry the flame, not to build a name, but to guard a fire that does not belong to time, is not shaped by culture, and cannot be extinguished by darkness. My child, the fire you carry is unlike any flame kindled by human will. It does not burn on the coals of achievement or flicker by the light of fleeting emotion. It is lit by the breath of heaven, burns through surrender, and is sustained through watchfulness. That is why it cannot survive carelessness. This fire requires a life attuned to quiet guidance, a soul willing to retreat when the noise becomes too loud, a heart that will lay down even beautiful things if they diminish the presence. This is what makes the calling of the flame bearer different from someone doing ordinary tasks. Not everything can be done. Not every place can be entered. Not every word can be spoken. And then there will come a time when you find yourself different, not because you are proud, but because you can no longer live the way you once did. The harmless jokes begin to weigh heavily on your heart. The long conversations that lack life begin to leave you feeling empty. The one-sided relationships begin to reveal their wear and drain, and you will ask yourself, am I becoming too extreme? But no, my beloved, you are not becoming extreme. You are being set apart. And being set apart is not for the sake of pride, but for the sake of guarding. It is the sign that your calling is taking form with increasing clarity, that the fire within you has begun to reshape the inner structure of your old self. My beloved child, I know there are times when you grow weary from having to keep yourself consecrated, when you must say no to things others so easily say yes to, when you choose silence over reacting, when you quietly leave a room because the atmosphere there begins to weaken the flame inside you. But oh, it is precisely in that refusal that your spirit silently declares, you know how precious the fire you carry truly is. Not everyone recognizes the value of the sacred, but the one who bears it must. And if you don't guard it, who will? There is a word in the Old Testament for people like you, those who are called not only to do, but to guard. That word is watchman. These ones are not always seen. They are not always the ones preaching before the congregation, but they are the ones awake while others sleep. They are the ones who keep watch before the alarm is ever sounded. They are the ones who sense collapse before it comes. And instead of panicking, they begin to pray. You are becoming such a watchman, and no one names themselves a watchman. It is the spiritual sensitivity, the ability to perceive unseen shifts in the atmosphere, the deep desire to uphold holiness within, that stands as the evidence. My child, as a watchman, you will see things differently. When you step into a room, you don't just notice the walls and ceiling. You sense the atmosphere, the spirit, the unspoken forces shaping the emotions in that space. When you speak with someone, you don't just hear their words. You feel the emptiness in their spirit, the wounds that haven't healed, the silent screams being stifled. And you cannot pretend not to see. You cannot ignore. You cannot turn away. Because there is a bell ringing within you. Keep watch. Intercede. Act. And even if no one else hears it, you know you must respond. I have not called you to stand guard alone. Everyone who carries the fire has a place on a greater spiritual map. You may not see the whole picture, but I am positioning each one strategically. Some are placed in the midst of crowded squares. Some stand in the quiet corners of remote houses. Some pray in the middle of a noisy gathering. Some sing alone in a hidden room. And you where you are is not by accident, but by the deliberate plan of the one who sees all things ahead. You are part of the system that keeps the flame alive. If you step back, there will be a gap. If you grow weary, there will be a breach. But if you continue to stand, the light will not go out. My child, awakening does not make you superhuman. It makes you tender, quick to weep, easily wearied, but it also makes you perceptive, quick to discern, and more willing to obey. Do not despise that sensitivity. It is an instrument. It stops you from speaking rashly. It keeps you from making seemingly logical choices that would slowly extinguish the fire. It causes you to pause in the middle of the road just to pray for someone, without knowing exactly why, and many times you will receive nothing in return except the quiet assurance, "This is right." And, my child, sometimes that one word "right" resonating within your soul is worth more than 1,000 affirmations from the world. So, watchman, continue on. When the night is still dark, keep the lamp burning. When no one else seems to care, choose to care. When you feel too small to make a difference, remember, light doesn't have to be large to drive out darkness. It only has to be real. And you are carrying a real light, and I am entrusting you to keep it burning. Remember this, you have kept the fire. You have learned how to walk in silence without losing direction. You have come to know when to speak, when to remain quiet, when to stand firm, and when to step back to listen to the heartbeat of heaven. But you must not keep that fire for yourself. A flame hidden away in an enclosed space will eventually die out. It can only endure when it is shared, when it is passed on, when it is placed upon other lamps to illuminate more souls. The one who carries the fire must also become the one who passes it on. That is why you are still here. You were not meant to live in isolation, but to reveal, not to shrink into understanding, but to release light into a world shrouded in darkness. When you stand at the intersection of two worlds, zone lit with holiness and faith, the other veiled by fear and shadow, the fire within you becomes a bridge. Not everyone dares to cross that bridge, but you have been called to be the first. You are a forerunner. You do not need titles. You do not need introductions, banners, or spotlights. All that is needed is for the flame within you to burn brightly enough to light the path for the one who follows. Just as Moses stood on the burning ground not to run, but to listen to the voice that spoke from the bush engulfed in flames, you too must not flee from the land of testing, but remain there, awaiting the commissioning, waiting for the word of direction. That fire does not make you proud. It brings you lower in humility, because you know the fire does not belong to you. It did not come from your effort, not from your talents, and certainly not from your learning. It came by grace, from a calling no one else could hear, from a choosing you yourself could not fully explain. You simply know that you can no longer go back to the way things were. Once your soul has tasted the holiness of presence, it can no longer adapt to the old ways. And from that moment on, every action, every word, every thought begins to carry the imprint of the one who dwells within. My child, the bearer of fire is also the bearer of a mark, not a mark carved upon the forehead, but one etched deep within the soul. That mark sets you apart, not by appearance, but by the atmosphere you carry. People may not be able to name it, but they will feel it. They will be stirred, sometimes by nothing more than a glance, a quiet prayer, or simply your calm presence in a chaotic room. That is when you will know the fire is still there. And when others ask about the source of that light, that is the moment to pass it on, not with eloquent words, but with a life refined in the silent watches of the night. You may think you are not yet ready, that you are still learning, still wrestling with your own winding path. But, my child, I do not wait for perfection before I use you. I use those who are broken to bring light into places left in ruins, like a fragile clay lamp holding eternal flame. It is through your cracks that the light shines most clearly. And so, do not fear your imperfections. Let them become the very place where my glory is revealed. My beloved child, you are part of a sacred continuum. Just as Elijah passed his mantle to Elisha, just as Jesus said to his disciples, you are the light of the world. You too are called to extend the flow of that same light. No one else can take your place. Every step you take, every soul you touch, every spark you help rekindle it is all remembered in heaven. Nothing is meaningless. No act is too small. No moment is random. All of it is weaving the grand symphony of redemption, where you are a part of the great chorus of the Creator. When you feel weak, when the fire in you seems nothing more than embers waiting for the wind to die out, remember this: I am the one who breathes life into what was thought dead. I am the one who restores oil to the lamp that has lost its flame, and I will never let the fire in you go out, so long as you still wish to keep it. Let me be the gentle wind that breathes into your weary soul. Let me pour fresh oil into your flickering flame. Let me remind you once more, you do not carry the fire to bear its weight, but to reveal something far greater than yourself. You are the one who holds the lamp, but I am the source of light. You are the vessel, but I am the living water. And as long as you remain connected to me, you will never run dry. You will walk through darkness without fear, speak into silence without anxiety, and stand firm amidst the floodwaters of life without being swept away. For it is not your strength that upholds you, but I, the one who placed the fire within you from the beginning. My child, you have kept the fire. You have borne the mark. You have stood in the midst of storms without breaking. But now, I long to lead you deeper still, not only to carry the light, but to become the dwelling place of light itself. Not only to be the one who guards the fire, but the very place where the fire takes residence. For you were not called merely to be a passerby who carries the sacred, but to become a habitation, a living sanctuary for my presence in the midst of a darkened world. Not to wander with a torch, but to be a point of contact between heaven and earth, a place where every desperate eye might lift and see a reflection of glory. Do you remember the ancient promise? I will dwell in them and walk among them. I will be their God, and they will be my people. You are the living fulfillment of that word. When you open your heart, when you choose to live by a rhythm unlike that of the world, a rhythm of obedience, of rest in me, you are building within yourself a dwelling not made by human hands, not with bricks and mortar, not with silver or gold, but with faith, with silent tears, with prayers no one hears, with unseen refusals of temptation. These are the stones, the beams, the holy nails that form a temple where I may dwell. Beloved child, you do not need to strive to produce something grand. I am not searching for temples built of accomplishments or accolades. I seek the humble place, the honest place, the place that does not try to hide its cracks, for it is through those very cracks that the light breaks forth, as if I were saying to the world, look, my glory can dwell in a fragile jar of clay, and shine from it. Let me know if you'd like this formatted into a letter, or if you'd like a version in more poetic or contemporary tone. And so, each day you choose forgiveness. Each time you choose to remain pure in a defiled world. Each moment you choose love instead of judgment. You open the gates of that temple a little wider. Every small action becomes an invitation to my presence. Know this, when I come, I do not come merely to visit, but to dwell, not as in the days of the old covenant, when I appeared in a cloud or a pillar of fire, only to withdraw again, but through the new covenant, sealed by the blood of my Son, I dwell within the hearts of my people, and from there, a fragrance is released that is not of this world. You will not need to speak much, nor strive for recognition. My presence within you will stir the spiritual realm. The enemy will know who you are, not by introduction, but by the atmosphere of heaven upon you. And those who are weary and hopeless will find in you a strange and wondrous comfort, as if a stream of living water were flowing through a barren wilderness. My child, this presence does not come through the striving of the flesh. It comes through surrender, surrendering control, surrendering personal plans, surrendering your own will. As Mary once said, "Let it be unto me according to your word." So must you declare this every day. Every time you bow to my will, I am able to pour out even more, and when I fill, all other things become abundant. Wisdom will not come from books, but from the illumination of the Spirit. Courage will not come from human preparation, but from faith in the one who never changes. Peace will not come from controlling everything, but from knowing that the one who dwells in you is greater than anything in the world. That is why the enemy fears you, not because you are wealthy, famous, or skilled, but because he sees the one you carry. He recognizes that you are no longer barren ground, but territory of heaven. Each time you walk in obedience, you tread upon the head of the serpent. Each time you choose trust over complaint, spiritual walls collapse. And each time you offer your life as a living and holy sacrifice, angels are dispatched, and the veil between heaven and earth grows thinner still. You are not merely one who is alive, you are an instrument through which heaven touches earth. Do you not know that when you step into a room, the spiritual atmosphere shifts? Not because you carry your own presence, but because you are bearing a flow from heaven, a light that cannot be described, yet can be deeply felt. When you enter a broken family, the presence within you can mend fractures no one else can see. When you sit among a crowd drowning in despair, the presence within you radiates like warmth in the heart of winter. You do not need to preach or shout, for your very life is already a living sermon. Every action, every glance, every quiet decisional of it speaks with the voice of the kingdom to which you belong. My child, because my presence dwells in you, darkness is no longer an unshakable force. When you step into a territory marked by pain, you are not merely a witness, you carry the remedy. When you walk into a home filled with strife, you are not just there to hear complaints, you bring the word that silences wrath. When you listen to a wounded soul, the peace within you becomes the affirmation their spirit longs for, that they are still loved, still seen, and that hope still remains. Because you are not just someone, you are a living emblem of love that does not withdraw, of light that does not fade, of hope that does not let go. Do you not see? I am using you as a gateway not for the world to pour into, but for my kingdom to pour out from. And when you understand that, you no longer need to impress, no longer need to chase perfection. Then you truly become a person of profound influence. one who is not bound by the expectations of others, not swayed by praise or criticism, not manipulated by approval or rejection. For you have been sealed by me, and you bear a mark that no one can erase. That mark is not visible to human eyes, but every entity in the unseen realm recognizes it. My child, you once thought that power was reserved for those who stood on stages, for those who stood out in the crowd. But I choose those who submit in the hidden places. I anoint the ones who still sing when no one is listening. I grant power to those who persist in prayer when no one is watching. And it is precisely thus the quiet, the faithful, the unseen who have the strength to shake realms. Not through noise, but through consistency, not through display, but through devotion, not by human effort, but by the strength that flows from my presence. That is why the enemy seeks to strike at your health, your emotions, and your spirit. He does not fear a busy person, one who speaks of morality, or someone who observes every religious ritual. What he fears is a heart fully surrendered. He trembles before someone who dares to say yes when no one else understands. He shudders when a soul chooses forgiveness over bitterness, and he loses his grip the moment a person decides to walk not by emotion, but by divine leading, because in that moment, you become a living vessel of a power not of this world. My child, every step you take is a spiritual footprint. When you pass through a place that was once a stronghold of despair, you are planting seeds of new hope. When you speak words of forgiveness to one who betrayed you, you are breaking chains that have bound them for years. When you choose to love the unlovable, you are opening a pathway for grace to reach their soul. These seemingly small acts carry the weight to shake the spiritual realm, because true love, true mercy, true kindness all flow from a source deeper than intellect. They come from presence. So, dear one, you must guard yourself from distraction, for presence does not dwell in a restless heart. If you let the world define your worth, if you allow the voices of others to steer you off course, you will begin to lose the clarity of the heavenly voice. You must learn to listen in stillness, to choose silence when your soul needs quiet, to know when to speak and when to wait. For one who carries the presence does not act under the impulses of flesh and blood, but moves in rhythm with heaven's heartbeat. Beloved child, the presence within you is a treasure. Guard it. Water its roots in the secret place. Protect the inner sanctuary of your soul as a gatekeeper of the sacred. For when you allow that presence to grow, to spread, and to flow into all that you do, then every glance, every word, every breath you take will become a melody of heaven played upon the earth. And in that moment, you are not just one who lives, you are one who is sent to bring heaven down to earth. Thank you for listening to today's message. Please click subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that together we may continue to receive the words of life, build a steadfast faith, and walk in the boundless love of God. Amen.